Hi everyone, it's Kathy Zilski and I'm so happy to be here today as a guest designer on the Honeybee Stamps YouTube channel. I've got a fun card project to share with you today that turned out a little differently than I'd planned. Let's take a look at the products. The stamp set I have here is called Oh My Whiskers. It's 6x8 and is full of really sweet kitties, fun to color with your favorite medium. I've also got the Perfect Sentiment stamp set, and I'm going to be using the coordinating dies with these as well. I'll be stamping with VersaFine ink because I am going to do some watercoloring, and I've got a whole stack here of Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and I will have all of the supplies listed on my blog post if you're curious as to which markers I'm using. I'm starting out today stamping the image on some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. I really like this cardstock for watercoloring with Zig Clean Color. I love it because it's not toothy, it's very smooth. So I'm going to ink up my stamp, and again, using the VersaFine because you can watercolor with it. I like to press over it, not with my skin, but with the little Swiffer cloth that I keep for cleanup. The thing I love about my Misty tool is I didn't think it was dark enough the first time, so you can just ink up your stamp and hit it a second time. I'm using my Art Impressions palette to scribble on my color, and I'm filling each balloon with clean water first. The reason why I'm doing this is just so that the paint will stay in the area where the water is. Now, this cardstock is different than watercolor cardstock, but I think it works really well for the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I'm just dropping in color. I am a very novice painter, if you will, at this point, but I have a really nice fine brush here. I think this is a number 4 that I'm using. And I'm just adding color, trying to create a bit of a gradient. I do the best that I can. I think that looks okay, but it is watercolor, so it can look a little handmade, if you will. I took 2 colors of marker to create this orange because I did not have the orange that I wanted. But again, I filled that balloon with the clean water and then went ahead and dropped it in. And I also waited a couple minutes in between each balloon to make sure that that red was dry enough so that the next color wouldn't bleed into the next balloon. But this dries pretty quickly and it was no problem. Moving on to the yellow. I felt that the yellow was a great color, but it felt a little flat to me. I didn't really nail the shading on this one, but we're gonna fix that. Next, onto the green, and again the same process. Clean water and then coming in with my color that I have scribbled onto that palette. But I noticed, look at that, see that little bit there and that little bit there? I somehow picked up some Versamark ink with my hand and managed to stamp it down onto the card. Now, it's not a problem for this project because I am going to be die cutting, but if this were my card panel, I have a solution. I have a way to fix that. Okay, final color here on the balloon is a couple. I actually used 3 different markers to create the blue and just tried to get my little shading. I went back with the green, brought in a darker green, and then just mixed it ever so slightly together with that really limey, what's called yellow green, just to come back in to add a little shading where I thought there should be shading. And I am not a master of shading. I think Christina Werner once said, imagine your light source is coming from a particular, I just try to make it look darker in some areas. So I did the same thing on the yellow balloon, and I think that improved it just a little bit. I decided to make my kitty 2 different colors of gray, but this is really simple. I just wanted a little definition so that the kitty didn't appear white. And I added the little tiny bit of pink. You can't even see it, but I know it's there. So now, want to get rid of this because that's bumming me out. If this were my card panel, and the Mono Sand Eraser, great tool. As long as you are, don't wait too long, just go lightly back and forth over the inked area that you want to remove. Or you can do a circular motion as well. Don't press too hard, but light enough, and just like magic, it will lift the ink off your cardstock. I've cut out a template using the coordinating die for this out of just some cheap printer paper. The reason I'm doing this and taping it down is because once you've done all this work, I hate to roll the dice on the die cutting part, and you can place the die right into the opening once you've framed out your image and technically it's going to give you a perfect cut. Now, I was a little surprised here because the balloons look great, everything looks great, but the tail, something went funny. And I think it's how I placed the stamp down, but we're going to deal with that later. I went ahead off camera and stamped and embossed the Oh My Whiskers sentiment with some white embossing powder. And this one as well, I'm framing out with a scrap of cardstock that I've die cut using the die. And look at that. That gave me a perfect cut. Most of the time, that's what happens when you create templates. Now in the Rainbow Wishes dies, I thought I'm going to use some clouds. And I thought I wanted to use solid clouds, but you're going to see how that's going to change. I'm scoring the card base. This is going to be, in my mind, top folding, right? 4 1/4 wide by 5 1/2 tall. And I always like to tape my card bases closed because the cardstock, this 110-pound cardstock, is kind of bulky. And I started laying it out, and I just thought, I don't like this. I wanted to cover the tail because I was bummed out that I, miss die cut it. But that just wasn't working. Enter the 1/4 turn rotation. As soon as I turned the card and brought in those clouds, the outline portion that are cut out, then I knew I'm going to cut off the cat's tail, and it's going to be just fine because it's going to look like he's just floating up into the sky. So I used a little liquid adhesive, just dotted that on to place down the little outlines. And it's kind of cool that you get the clouds and you get these outlines. Again, I put that little purple tape there just so I remembered exactly where that cloud was supposed to go. I brought in my ruler on the big one just because it's big and I wanted to make sure. I think on a simple card, if things are supposed to be straight, it really does help. But when I went to cut off the overhang, I've seen people do this all the time in videos. I am not good with scissors in this fashion because as soon as I snipped, I realized I nicked part of the cardstock because these are sharp scissors and I'm not that good with them. I don't mess around anymore. Just bring in the paper trimmer, the folded card in place. This thing cuts so precisely and I could go ahead and quickly trim off. So me and the hand scissor thing, that's much better. I added some foam tape to the back of my painted piece, and here's the great tip of the century. Your score buddy can be used to line things up, because now I cut part of the kitty off. I used the paper trimmer for that, and I wanted him to be flush with the bottom of the card. We solved so many problems there. We solved a tail that was miscut. We solved a design problem. I absolutely love him bleeding off, and then I also popped up the Oh My Whiskers, It's Your Birthday. Sometimes you just have to shift your card around to get the right design, and I hope that is the takeaway from today because you can see this design, it actually works a lot better. Finished it off with some sequins, and that is my finished card project. Shiny, simple, but with a little bit of texture in that background. I really love it. Thanks so much for watching today, and go ahead and subscribe to the Honeybee YouTube channel, and you can hit the little gray bell below the video so that you don't miss any future videos from Honeybee Stamps. Thanks again, and have a great day.